circle. Hello everybody, my name is Matto and I work at the National Institute of Urban Affairs, which is an autonomous apex body of Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, looking into capacity building, policy research and advisory support. Today, me and my colleague Paramita Dey, who looks into the waste management sector, especially with regard to solid waste, we are here to deliberate our learnings and findings with regard to the whole notion of sustainable waste management, be it solid or liquid waste management in India. So Paramita, we know that waste management has come a long way in India, and the whole notion with regard to this is how the Swachh Bharat Mission has played a pivotal role in ensuring the enabling environment to create that strike amongst different stakeholders to ensure that there is onus with regard to waste management. So what do you think about this whole waste management in India?
We see that the Swachh Bharat Mission has been instrumental in driving as a driving force, whether in terms of a policy or a program, and also getting in a lot of people on board in this whole process, and that is why it's being popularly called as a Jan Andolan. Now, apart from the fact that there's a lot of infrastructure that has been built, a lot of processing facilities that have been built, we are now struggling to remediate more than 2,300 odd dump sites. What has been a collective experience of both of us is we feel that capacity building has played a very important role, and it will continue to play a very important role in this whole process. So just to share one of my experiences, I was part of the Swachh Bharat 1.0's capacity building initiative, and we have been leading it from NIUA. And what we experienced is capacity building cannot be one-off, it cannot be one size fits all, and it also cannot be one size fits all whether we talk of geographies or we talk of stakeholders. Now, Mahreen, you have been doing a lot of work in hill areas. What is your view about how it should be done differently in hill areas?
I completely echo to what you are saying, that capacity building, it cannot be a one-time process. It has to be continuous. We need to understand the fact that our technical capabilities within the municipal functionaries is something which we need to build on, and that is why it has to be continuous. And rightly mentioned, it cannot be contextual. It has to be contextualized. One size fit for all doesn't work. For example, if I talk about the hilly areas, the one and the most prominent challenge is with regard to the terrain. The terrain is so rocky, it's so difficult, and then we are talking about climate change. We have flash floods, we have landslides. How do we encompass the fact that the capacity building needs for the officials or the stakeholders in the hilly areas has to be different, and it needs to be contextualized. Also, the context needs to be taken in view with regard to the need of the officials and the need of the state or the city or at the national level.
So, if you look at a city as a whole, and particularly an urban local body as a whole, our experience has been that we can group them into mainly three categories. One is the senior and the mid-level officials, which includes a lot of technical officials. And then you have the mid-level and the emerging younger people, and also engineers and very technical people who have hands-on experience on ground. And then we have the Safai Karmacharis or the Safai Mitras who are ground functionaries. And a lot of times we forget about the elected representatives. They play a very crucial role in onboarding, not only onboarding people, but also in sustaining efforts that have been made by the technical people. And typically, I think what we have been doing in our capacity building work at NIUA, whether it is solid or liquid waste, we start with a needs assessment and understand the needs of a particular stakeholder, of a particular region, and then we go about it. So Mahreen, how have you been doing the needs assessment?
So, rightly mentioned, Paramita, how important it is to ensure that we capacitate each and every stakeholder. And when we talk about the government officials, elected rep makes a lot of difference. Just to answer that question first, that with regard to our working in the relief telling, we realize that elected representation is a must and they need to be sensitized. Because in the end, the decision making lies on them, right? And secondly, when we talk about the training need assessment, for each and every training which any training institute does, be it NIUA, be it the academic training institutes, be it the Swachh knowledge partners or the NGOs, it's important that they understand what is the need of the trainee and if we ensure that we have a training need assessment it can be different. Different organizations have their own way of doing it, but how we do it, we do a pre and post assessment in order to understand pre-assessment, in order to understand what is the need based on the skill and the qualification of a particular training vis-a-vis to the demand of a particular city or a state, if we are working in that. Understanding that need, then we need to have the program structured accordingly. It doesn't mean that the large repository of training modules which various organizations have made, it needs to be contextualized. We do not need to reinvent the wheel because there is a huge repository of training modules which have been developed over the years. But it is then to be contextualized. One, you understand the need, doing the pre-assessment, you contextualize the training, and then the major onus lies how you ensure that the learning is being translated into action. That is where organizations like NIUA provides that support, that we do the post-assessment so that you provide that continuous learning to these trainees so that they take over the whole onus of ensuring that what they have learned is translated into action.
Yeah, and here I can share one of my experiences that we've been doing training in two ways. So either we train, we go to a particular region and train, or we call them as a captive people in a particular region and train. So what works well for elected representatives may not work well for technical people. Technical people want to do the nitty-gritties, they want to do some hands-on exercise. Whereas when you're talking about elected representatives, we feel that they're very excited to talk. They want to share their own experience. They want to go and see. So exposure visits have worked very well. It has worked well for all stakeholder groups, but particularly for elected representatives, they want to go, see, touch, feel, and discuss with their peers. So here, my experience has been that peer-to-peer learning is a great tool if you are talking about capacity building. The other thing that we mentioned, you also mentioned, that they want to take the learnings of a training program on ground. So capacity building always should be followed by some kind of hand-holding support on ground. Say for example, when we tell people, that you should go in for decentralized processing facilities, whether it is a DWATs in case of liquid waste or maybe a small decentralized composting plant for wet waste. Now, they actually want to know which are the different models, what would be the capex, what would be the opex, see it, and then an expert can sit with them and guide them to actually have a facility on ground working and kicking.
Completely agreeing that seeing is believing, right? So it's very important that we showcase some good practices which is happening. In India, we have examples with regard to the various practices, be it on solid waste or liquid waste management. And it's not only for the elected representatives, also it is important for the municipal functionaries to understand how another state has performed with regard to solid or liquid waste management. And also it is important that once you take them to other states, even they come to understand, to know about the institutional framework,
right,
how devolution of funds has been taken place, how convergence with regard to different departments or different schemes have taken place in that particular state. So that these are very important. And also when we do capacity building, it's important that we showcase them some live examples, some live case studies which have worked or which have not worked, so that they get a flavor of both the things.
Right. You mentioned a very good point, Mahreen, about things that have not worked. Now, most of the time we are ranting a lot about good practices and about, we always try to highlight the doers. But it is also important to understand what did not work. So nowadays we've found some interesting terminology to that. There's an interesting terminology called case clinic, wherein you take a case and you understand it bit by bit, the different aspects of it, right? What were the challenges? What were the barriers? So it could even be something like there was a great technology, but people were not accepting it because of cultural factors. So therefore, it is very important to understand what did not work and why.
Right. And also I think like with regard to capacity building, over the time there was a notion that we need to look into the infrastructure, we need to dwell more into the technical components. But now it's the time that even the softer components, which is being also highlighted with regard to Swachh Bharat Mission on, for example, occupational health safety of sanitation workers or rag pickers. So all these elements stitched together to ensure that any program which is happening at the city or state level is robust. So please, whenever we do a capacity building training for all the viewers, it's important that we look into the technical as well as the softer components. Then only things can work on ground.